Hello, dear friends. I welcome everyone presently watching Sotnik-TV. It's Wednesday, May 6, 2020, and you are watching our weekly Wednesday news show. Today I had a conversation with Mikhail Krutikhin, an economist and an expert on the oil market. Coming up next, see his thoughts exclusively for our show. Those in Kremlin are really looking forward to oil prices returning to their previous level. The acceptable market price for Urals oil is around $42 per barrel, as far as I know. Is such price realistic within the time frame of 2020, considering that stockpiles are filled to the brim and the crisis is likely to still get worse? I'm quite skeptical when it comes to expectations of an oil price increase. We do see the prices for oil futures rising now. For example, the price of the futures for Brent oil goes for around $32 per barrel now. But if we look at a so-called dated Brent indicator, which serves as the actual base for the price of the Urals oil, as well as oil from Azerbaijan and various other oil grades, we saw that yesterday it reached $22.84, including delivery to the Mediterranean. Such numbers were shown by the Italian port of Augusta. If we compare that to the price of $15.17 as of April 27th, we see the price is in fact rising. However, if we monitor the future oil contract prices keep fluctuating, we may observe those affected by some algorithms. By that I mean special software reacting to news and giving commands either to buy or to sell, and thus moving the entire market back and forth within milliseconds. So there has been news that has been able to move the algorithms in such a way. For example, the US and Canada are going to shut some of their wells, which will decrease oil production by 2.5 to 3.5 million barrels per day by the end of the year. Then we saw some reports of gas consumption increase in the US. There was news of Saudi Arabia rapidly reducing the number of its oil export deals for May. Such news should indicate that the oil prices will go back up with time, giving traders hope. But if we take a deeper look, we'll see that the supply of oil on the market still exceeds the demand. The demand for oil remains is way lower. We see that the coronavirus is still on and strong, and we may in fact face a second round of the pandemic. That will sure bring new challenges for the economy. So it's still too early for celebrations. Now if we look at Saudi Arabia, we see it's planning on selling quite a small amount of oil in May. The reason for this is simple. In April and March it tried to produce as much oil as it could, to an all-new record-breaking production level. The produced oil was transferred to several storage facilities in countries such as the Netherlands, Japan and others. In addition to that, it's been using giant tanker vessels as storage. So during May all this oil has been flooding into the market. Still, this hasn't been taken into account as the deals for it were signed a few months previously. The thing is that market software bots are unable to react to such types of news. I guess sooner or later they will realize that suppliers don't know what to do with that much of their oil. So Russia won't be able to sell much of it, thus the prices will keep dropping. What about those who are residing in the outskirts of Moscow currently? How are Russians going to get through this crisis? What's up with the underlying people, those who were once named publicly by the authorities? What are these individuals bracing themselves for and what are their hopes? I've discussed that with Dmitry Demushkin. Dmitry, what are the people in Moscow outskirts up to now? What are they looking forward to in the future? The situation here is quite serious and a bit alarming now. Vladimir Putin has offered more days off for work, yet businesses were unable to provide such kind of support. According to the recent reports provided by the banks, up to 60% of all borrowers have now defaulted on their repayments. Half of those referenced the fact that they have lost their jobs. So people are used to going into debt. They borrowed money for buying new cars, houses and the rest. But now the situation has changed dramatically. People have gotten fired despite all promises of them about keeping their jobs. They were told that if they apply to a job center, they could still get some form of allowance. But if they try to stay, they will end up with no money at all. Some of them were forced to take non-paid vacations and promised that once things get better, they will go back to work. And some were granted minimum wage way. A lot of people got their wages cut to their minimum legal limit. So Russian people are in for some tough times ahead. The situation on the streets is quite alarming due to the crowds of illegal labor immigrants that were brought here and weren't taken into account by the authorities. So there is an army of unemployed who used to work illegally, then lost their jobs and are now left on the streets. As you can clearly see, that has led to robberies, assaults, fights and so on, especially on the outskirts of Moscow. Imagine the numbers of people who used to live in slums, those who have all been left behind. The authorities have declared they won't provide any relief for them. Russia is the only civilized European country that in fact refused to support its people. All the support measures that have been offered are either fake or meant for a small select group. They will surely try to save their rich friends, but what will the rest of us do? Instead, the authorities have made penalties more severe for people. Yes, that has become a kind of a joke. The strongest measures taken to support people in Russia is the new penalties. The first thing the authorities worry about is how to raise funding during the pandemic. They don't want to support people and businesses. And by businesses, I don't mean huge companies, but rather small barbershops, eateries and so forth and so on. Places providing services for regular people. Such companies may not return to operations still. That means millions of citizens will lose their jobs and will not have any money to repay the banks. People's purchasing capacity will drop, so those companies that are already operating on the verge of their profitability will now have to close, having no income at all, as the number of their customers will drop dramatically. That means serious problems for the entirety of the economy. Russian authorities have gotten used for half measures. They never see a task through to its end. They could have adopted a state of emergency and take responsibility. Yet they prefer to ruin local businesses and keep from supporting people. They get used to a form of hybrid management. They fake and hide everything they do. So once they provide help for people, it's a hybrid help. Once they adopt an emergency state, that is also something hybridized. They named it self-isolation. So here comes my next question. Once the government doesn't provide any financial aid and people aren't able to pay for their daily living expenses, what do you expect? Will there be a crime wave? Will they start assaulting each other? Will they form gangs and start breaking into shops? Can they finally take the Kremlin? The one thing I know for sure is that many people are now desperate. There were people declaring that they themselves are fully removed from politics. They never participated in any sort of political event. They were hoping to pass by all of this, raising just enough money to pay their bills. A lot of them have now been isolated at home without even knowing how to buy food. It's clear now that the authorities won't provide any help to them. What can that possibly lead to? That will leave masses of people hungry and outraged. Those people will express it loud and clear in some way or somehow. They may go on the streets demanding a change in the government. They will have to do something. Their property and real estate may now be seized by debt collectors. I guess that will lead to something more dramatic than just simple social discontent. One that leads to gunfire. That sure will, as people were in fact left behind. The authorities clearly declared that they care for the people. The pandemic has to come to an end sooner or later. Still, those people won't be able to afford their basic daily needs. A lot of them have children. There are lots of families with only one member earning an income in the household. Now the only employed family member's job is gone, and so is the food for a man's wife and children. How else can he react now? He's received no support whatsoever. So as we see, there is no support of any kind and the situation declining rapidly. The measures taken are nothing but smoke and mirrors. How long do you think this will last? Will the government in Russia be able to maintain itself at least until the end of the year? Anything can happen now, something may happen tomorrow that will start a chain of events and eventually lead to a change in the future. As of today, we don't know what emergency safety measures the authorities still have in Fani. We don't know the actual level of people's outrage. Staying isolated and obtaining the news from the government-owned mass media, we're unable to see the scale of the ongoing catastrophe. Still, we should be able to evaluate this later on this month when they lift this state self-isolation, as has been declared. The last thing they will allow now are mass events. Still, the authorities have ended up as hostages also in this pandemic. They will have to allow people to meet sooner or later. They need those people to vote for the amendments to the Constitution. The voting was announced loudly, and that requires removing all restrictions from mass events and rallies. The population of the entire country will participate in this vote. That will be when we have seen the true scale of the disaster. Take care of yourself, stay healthy, and make sure to watch Sotnik-TV.